This is KULR 8's Sunday Roundtable with Greg and Chris.
Very good Sunday morning, everybody. You're watching the Sunday Roundtable with Greg and Chris. Greg LaMotte, Chris Byers. Another beautiful day in the Magic City.
We are blessed with fall weather this year, aren't we?
Yeah, we are.
It's just beautiful.
You see all the trees changing and the leaves on the streets and leaves in our yards.
Yes, in our backyards.
Hate that. Well, Chris, we are at the Center for Children and Families. I have not heard of this facility until a woman named Tammy Melhoff contacted me, and she works here. And apparently they do quite a bit of rehab among children and their parents, and parents who have been separated from their children, maybe drugs or alcohol or whatever, and they try to get them back together, or at a minimum help the health of a child.
Well, let's go in and see what it's all about.
All right, let's go. Eric Halverson, how are you?
Well, thanks. Yourself?
Eric, last time I saw you, you were in a basketball uniform with the West High Bears.
That's right. It's been a few years.
It's been a few years.
Was he dunking?
I don't remember him as being much of a dunker. He was the big guy inside knocking people around.
More of a rebounder.
More of a rebounder, yeah.
Hustle guy.
Tough on the boards.
Eric, tell us about this center, how long it's been here. I mean, this is the first time I've heard of it, to be honest with you.
Right, so we've been in this building for about 18 months, but we've been in existence for about 4 years as the Center for Children and Families. And you know what we do is we just work for children and families that are going through separation, substance abuse issues, and mental health challenges, just to help them heal together as a family.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, how did it come to be?
So in 2011, we really identified this need in the community to help families that face really the most deep and pervasive obstacles to healthy development. And so we launched this organization where Second Chance Homes and Arrowhead Psychological merged to become the Center for Children and Families.
You know, there's a tremendous upside to growth in a city, and Billings obviously has grown by leaps and bounds in the last 25 years, but the downside can be, as a city grows, so do the problems within the city. From your perspective, does it continue to, the number of cases that you work with continue to grow as the city grows because of the size of the town?
I can't really talk about that issue. I haven't been here for not long enough, but I really do believe that that is the case, and especially in Yellowstone County with just our economic base and things like that, we really do see a lot of families coming through here that need quite a bit of assistance. So the numbers speak for themselves. I had mentioned to you earlier 182 cases of abuse and neglect in 2014, over 250 already this year, so the numbers are growing.
Who is the center connected with that hooks you guys up with these families?
So we work very closely with Child Protective Services. They'll refer a lot of women and children over to us to offer them a variety of therapeutic services and counseling. So that's our primary, and we work very closely with the Yellowstone County Family Treatment Drug Court to really work with those families closely as well. So.
And how much of what you do is based on, well, obviously the child is the forefront of what you do and the care for the child. However, the education, the learning part, I would say a big part of what you do is to make the parent become more in tune with their children and educate them to be better parents so they can, in turn, pass that on to their own kids.
Right. I'm unapologetically a very big nerd, and so on the weekends when I'm researching this, it's quite clear, what the leading voices in the field are saying is that children need healthy, capable adults in their lives. And so we really do believe in the two-generation approach, which is, helping children, but also investing in their caretaker, whether that be a biological parent, a grandparent, or a foster parent.
Okay, so I am a drug-addicted parent. I'm assuming that I am separated from my child because I've been through the court system, and now I'm trying to show the courts that I want to be a good person. I want to get off of drugs. So I'm going through drug rehab, and I've finished drug rehab. Now comes the time when we say, how about we get our kids back together with our parents? Show us what you showed us earlier about how the process starts.
All right, so you want to walk over to the room?
Lead the way.
All righty.
Well, we're going down there to show us what you do. How do you follow up? In other words, once a parent has gone through the process and you feel that they're ready to take back their kids, then how do you follow up with that to make sure that that they're having continued success?
Right, so, as I mentioned, we're running a marathon here. So care doesn't necessarily end at a certain point. That's not a black and white protocol by any means. So we want to make sure that parents have the resources they need to get to the period of resilience where they can walk out our doors and take on life's inevitable challenges, and get back up every single time they fall. So we all fall in life, but how do we get back up? And we believe that is resilience. So those are social emotional tools that we're coaching here at the Center for Children and Families.
So, this room, tell us what goes on in here.
So, for a lot of women we work with, their own past has put them in a place where they've never had effective and healthy parenting modeled for them. So we would bring a parent and a child into this room and place a bug in the mother's ear so that we can put a therapist actually outside the room who can watch and listen in real time through the audio-video capabilities of this room and 2 others within our facility, and actively coach mom rather than be physically present in the same room. She can coach mom on how to respond to her child so we can begin eliciting positive behavior from that kiddo.
What are some typical things this therapist might be telling the mom?
So we talk about labeled praise a lot. Labeled praise is the evidence-based practice term for what it means to tell a child what they did specifically that the parent is appreciating and wants to see more of.
How difficult is it when you go through this process? Is it harder for the child? Is it harder for the parent? I mean, what are the obstacles that are to make this connection work again?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think that it's challenging for both of them. Often when we see families, the child and the parent have both been through a tremendous amount of traumatic events. We talk in this industry a lot about ACE scores, ACEs, ACE, adverse childhood experiences, and both the adults and the children we work with have a substantial score typically, meaning that they've been through quite a bit. And so both of them face their own challenges, which just, reinforces why we do what we do, which is bringing the whole family in here and offering therapies and counseling to both adult and child so they can heal together.
What are some of the, some of the common behaviors you would see from a child who's been in foster care and is now in this room with their parent?
I think that the neuroscience is actually quite clear on this. When we talk about the prefrontal cortex being underdeveloped for a lot of children who've been through trauma, and toxic stress is the term that's thrown around a lot. Emotional outbursts, inability to control impulses and emotion, focus, set goals, follow through. Again, that's what we call executive function. And in neuroscience, I don't claim to be an expert, but I am a nerd, as I mentioned. So.
Typical age of the child?
That's a good question. When we ran Second Chance Homes, which we're trying to bring back, the typical age of the kiddo was about 4.5 years old. But at the Center for Children and Families, we have over 40 staff, and we're serving children all the way from infants up to foster care children aging out of the system who can be as old as 24.
Wow. Mm-hmm. So in this next room is where the therapist is.
Right.
And in this room is clinician Tara Hall.
Hi, Tara.
Hi.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Now, you're sitting in here while the parent and the child are in the next room.
Yep.
And we saw that camera on the ceiling.
And the ceiling, yeah.
What are you doing? Show us.
So what I'm doing is the parents have this cool little thing. It's called the bug in the ear.
Right.
We put that in their ear so that they're able to hear us and we can see everything that's going on from this computer.
Right.
And we're able to give the parent directions and prompts in order to follow so that the power stays with the parent and the therapist doesn't take that away from the parent.
Tara, is there a formula that you use with everyone, or do you treat each person individually and base your responses on that person?
So really at the intake we gather all the information that we need and then we kind of assess depending on the needs of the family. And so this particular form of therapy is parent-child interaction therapy, and this really helps kids ages 2 to 7 that struggle with behavioral issues. So parents who are having problems with behavior, school problems, separation anxiety, ADD, all of those kinds of things. This helps with, number 1, the bonding part, and number 2, the discipline part.
Based on your experience, what are some of the things you know you're going to be telling that parent?
So with that parent, I know that we're going to be working on mastering some certain criteria. So they have to meet mastery of criteria in order to move on to the discipline part of the therapy. That mastery criteria includes working on behavioral descriptions, reflecting what the child is saying, and using labeled praises in order to increase the attention for that behavior so that the child does that behavior more often.
What are some of the challenges that you may have where, you know, it's part child, part adult, obviously, and getting them to connect with each other, but what are some of the challenges that you face where you may be listening and watching and just thinking, this isn't working? I mean, how do you go through those, work through those issues?
You know, it just takes a lot of time for some parents, and for other parents it doesn't take much time. And it really depends on the child, how quickly they're willing to get motivated and talk to the parent or work with the parent on following those directions. So the first part of the therapy, the kid actually gets to lead the play, and the parent is really tuning in to the child. So we call that child-directed interaction. That's where the parent has to meet the mastery criteria before they're able to move into the discipline part of the program. And very often we've got parents who struggle with consistency, remaining calm. Really, consistency is key, and so we work on training the parent in order to work on homework every day with the child, child-directed interaction, where they're following the child's lead. And then that homework changes a little bit when they move into the second part of the therapy.
Now, Eric told me it is not the goal of the Family Center to reunite. Not necessarily.
Not necessarily.
It's about the welfare of what's best for the child.
Yes, exactly.
Right?
So what's in the best interest of the children?
So not everybody makes it, correct?
Not everybody makes it.
And describe those kind of cases. What's going on? They just can't get away from drugs, or...
Often we have, you know, people who do struggle with chemical dependency, and just because they're still getting help for chemical dependency, that may not be done in a certain time frame that the children need them to do that in. So we continue to serve the parents and help them, even if they do lose custody of their kids. Reunification, you know, if it's in the best interest of the kids, that's always the goal. But the parents also need to learn to be safe and to really read the children's cues and do what the kids need them to do. And sometimes our parents, they've been through so much trauma that they're not able to recognize how what they've been through affects their lack of ability to parent.
Are you when you work with the parents, is the goal in your mind to reunite them, or is the goal, like you said, what's in the best interest of the child, and maybe it being with the parent is not in the child's best interest? Is that hard to do?
It's hard to do, but I'm usually really hopeful that the parents can get the tools that they need. Parent-child interaction therapy, usually the parents are with their kids at least 3 times a week in order to complete the homework, and that increases their bond and that attachment in that first part of the therapy. Now, if parents can't reach mastery in that first part within a certain time frame, we have to reassess and make sure that they're getting their needs met in every aspect to make sure they're getting the right form of therapy. If they're not getting what they need, then we put them in the services that we feel they need, and we make referrals. And
if I'm a parent who's being successful, from the day that I come in here with my child, day one, how long of a process is it?
It really just depends, case-by-case basis. With parent-child interaction therapy, the goal is 12 to 24 sessions. Now, some of the families that we meet with have a lot of challenges, and so that gets extended for a little bit longer.
What about the aftercare? And I asked Eric this too, but let's say they go through the process, they complete the course, they're reunited with their child. How far out do you continue to monitor that family?
As long as we can.
Yeah.
Just because they're reunified doesn't mean services stop. So we continue to work with that family as long as they'll allow us to.
And Tara, if I have one of these in my ear, what am I hearing Tara say to me?
So what I'm saying is, go ahead and do a direct command, or you're going to be reflecting
what this direct command, are you?
So yeah, I teach these parents. I teach the parents in a session all of these tools, and then at the beginning of every session, we do 5 minutes where the parent has to recall these tools themselves, and then after that 5 minutes I let them know what their scores are, and then we go through and I'm prompting them the entire time so they know what a behavioral description is. So go ahead and describe what so-and-so is doing with their hands. So that's the description, and then anytime your child says something, I want you to reflect that back to them. And now go ahead and give your child a labeled praise. So great job listening, or great job sitting still, or thank you for handing me the block.
So it's almost like phone counseling right next door.
Exactly.
And do they assimilate this? Because I mean, it's when someone's talking in your ear, and we know that better than anybody in our business. But when someone's talking in your ear and you're trying to communicate with someone else, and it's something they're not used to, does it take a little while for them to be able to get that process working?
It does take a little bit sometimes, but it's not like I'm talking a million miles an hour. You know, I'm also going at the parent's pace.
Very good. Well, I think we've got this segment of show done. Now I think we ought to meet the director of this place.
Sounds good.
All right, we'll be right back, everybody. Hey, welcome back, everybody. You're watching the Sunday Roundtable, and we're with Donnie Houston, the executive director. This is a big place, so can we walk and talk?
Absolutely. Yeah, there's lots to show you.
All right. Donna, one of the things that we were talking about off camera is that your whole focus really is on the welfare of the child, correct?
Yes, absolutely. We believe that investing the right services for children will give them the skills and the resiliency they need to be successful, no matter what their circumstances now and in the future. So that's what we look to build, is strong kids.
A lot of the emphasis is on with the parents, and you know, if they have drug problems or whatever, getting them to reconnect with their kids. But how do you work with kids that say on above and beyond that? They may have attention deficit disorder, they may have a learning disability. How do you work with children like that goes beyond the parent-child relationship?
Yeah, absolutely. We have a full clinical unit here, and then we also do a lot of collaborative work with our community partners. We have tremendous services in Billings, and we work very closely with them to ensure that every issue that the child faces has a good resource with proven techniques to help them learn the skills they need and get the services they need to address the issues.
So this facility is not about making sure that mom and the child are back together again. It's mostly about the health of the child, so that in the future, that child has a shot at some success.
Absolutely. I mean, we certainly do enjoy having parents reunified, you know, with children reunified with parents, but our ultimate goal is the outcomes for kids. And so we do work closely with parents, and we have a lot of successful parent reunifications, but we do see the success more in the child's outcomes than we do whether it's reunification or it's adoption or it's foster care, because there's lots of scenarios that work for kids.
We'll continue on down here and just tell us what some of these rooms are and what they're for. And
Sure. Well, all of these rooms surrounding us here are therapy rooms. So places where we do play therapy or art therapy or trauma-focused therapy. We have a forensic interview space in the back here where we work closely with law enforcement to help with investigations of child abuse or potential sexual abuse. It's a best practice approach to the interview, and it's set by national standards, and we've developed that here at the center. A couple of them across the state, but we certainly take pride in our ability to address the issue with a trauma focus. It's one of the underlying themes of the center, is that we want to approach the issues with children and families from a trauma focus so that we don't re-traumatize kids who have experienced abuse or neglect. But aside from the abuse and neglect issues, our clinical unit also works with all kinds of families in the community, neuropsychological evaluations, so we can get individual education plans. We can work with families that have autism in the family. So lots of different services that really work to build children's health and families' relationships. So.
And I asked Eric this question, I'll ask you, because they say you're the heart of this organization.
Oh, that's racist.
He says the problem is getting worse. Or at least the more you do, the more you're finding. And more cases are coming to you. How does that affect you about your feeling about this community as a whole? Do we need to really, I mean, from your mind, when you go home, do you think, what's going on here?
Well, sure I do. I mean, I think we all do look at our community and wonder, you know, how could it possibly be getting worse? I think part of the equation is that we're also more aware as a society that we need to respond more quickly and more thoroughly to these kinds of issues. So when it comes to child welfare involvement, we are seeing an unprecedented spike in involvement of families in child welfare. And there was an article in the paper that even stated they're not sure exactly why that is happening. But we certainly see the majority of our cases affected by substance abuse.
Right.
We're just seeing a spike in drug use and addiction, and it affects families profoundly.
Well,
so,
for all the people that you help that need help or seek help, how many go, or how much of the problem is out there that goes unreported?
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, you know, a lot of it. Well, as you can see with child welfare, they're having a hard time even keeping up with the reports that they're getting. And one of the things that we work hard to do is partner with child welfare so that we can begin to respond therapeutically to some of their cases, and they can move on to address some of those, you know, lingering cases or reports in the community. So we really work in partnership with them to ensure that we can increase the services and target those services so that once we get a family involved in the services, we're definitely addressing the issues that are identified through clinical evaluation. Then we can get to the heart of the issues, and hopefully we can get to the heart of the issues generationally so that their sibling or, you know, any future children that might come along in the family would not experience that same trauma or abuse or whatever that might be.
If I come in as a 5-year-old kid and my mother's addicted to drugs, is it likely that my uncle, my cousins, my aunt, my stepdad, my dad, all of these people are involved in that action?
It's so very likely, absolutely. One of the things that we do face is, you know, people will ask, why do you work with families that, you know, have addiction issues or have been involved with drugs? Well, for one thing, because the children have so much potential. I mean, we need to invest in the kids because they can make other choices. The parents that we work with, they historically have substance abuse in their family. They were raised, you know, by substance abusing parents. They were oftentimes in the foster system themselves. So you can see it's a generational cycle, which is why the key is getting in there, using the right approaches and breaking that cycle.
And lastly, when it comes to the issue of funding, obviously you as the director are constantly concerned about money, right? Something's coming up. Can you tell us about it in terms of a fundraiser?
In terms of a fundraiser, now, there's several of them going on, but right now we're really trying to find supporters to reopen our Second Chance home. We ran it with a federal grant for 5 years, and like I said, we were one of 53 grantees in the original round. They gave out just 7 renewals at the end of that 5 years. We were one of the 7 because they felt we had, you know, some really promising outcomes. And we used those 2 years to refine the program, but also work with the state to find a viable funding source from child welfare because it's a child welfare initiative. Unfortunately, they weren't able to find the funding before we had to close the house last year in July. However, I got a call in July that they did find some funding, and they really would like to be able to have that service up and running for families again. So they didn't have any upfront money to get us going again. That's why we're doing some fundraising to see if we can raise that money to get those staff hired and trained and certified, get the house ready, and move those families that are on the waiting list already into that home. So. Thank
Pleasure
you.
meeting you.
You too. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You too. Thanks.
I'm glad there are people in this community like you,
Oh, thank you.
helping take care of our kids.
Absolutely.
Well, thanks for taking time to learn a little bit about us. I didn't get to take you around, but we've got tons of things therapy. On the other side is our children's services unit, so they do interactive play therapies and supervised visits and things, and then just substance abuse treatment services. Tons of stuff going on at the building. So, yeah.
Hey, everybody, we'll be right back.